you're struggling with depression and not feeling the comfort and peace that you need, I invite you to meet with missionaries like me from the Church of Jesus.
Look at this house. Until December 30th of the year 2000, it was an ordinary family home in Tokyo. What happened there that night, though, would be so disturbing it would result in one of the largest investigations in Japanese history. Here's what's even stranger, though. What happened immediately following the disturbing events that night would be almost weirder than the events themselves, and it would result in an insane amount of evidence being left behind. Yet, despite all of this, to this day, the case is no closer to being solved. This is that horrifying story, and as always, viewer discretion is strongly advised. In December of the year 2000, the Miyazawa family lived in a modest, semi detached house next to Soshigaya Park in a quiet, family friendly neighborhood of Setagaya, Tokyo. This is just west of the Tokyo city center, and the family had lived there since 1991. The house was built in a suburban style, and so it had typical Japanese features like tatami mats, wood flooring, and built in closets. It was a four-level residence with a ground floor, a mezzanine level, a second floor, and an attic. The back was facing the park, and the front faced a quiet residential street. With no basement for storage, the total living space was compact, and a single internal staircase connected all levels except the attic. It was basically a practical, space saving design for a family of four, but the family felt a bit cramped. They had actually recently discussed moving, but so far there were no actual plans. On the ground floor was a garage and the main entrance, which led to an open plan area including a small dining space and 44-year-old Mikio's study where the family computer was. The bathroom was also on the mezzanine level and had a window, which was often left open overlooking the park. Right next to the bathroom was where 6-year-old Ray slept on the lower part of a bunk bed in a play area shared by his 8-year-old sister Nina. Above that was the second floor, which had a kitchen, a living room with a bay window, and a balcony. Then, accessed by a pull down ladder from this floor, was the attic, which was mainly used as a sleeping space for the parents. It had a low ceiling at about 170 centimeters, or about 5 foot 6, and standing upright was difficult for an adult. It also had a few small windows, and with a TV in there, it made it a cozy area for relaxing too. Nina actually frequently shared the bed with her mother in the attic, especially when Ray had already gone to bed downstairs and Mikio stayed up late. Mikio worked in an office for a trading company and handled some business at home via a password protected email account on the family computer. His wife, 41-year-old Yasuka, was a homemaker, and the children went to local elementary schools and took part in typical childhood activities. Yasuko's mother Haruko also lived in the adjacent house next door and had close daily contact with the family. All in all, it was a pretty standard life for a young Japanese family. The evening of December 30th began as a normal evening for the family. After returning home from shopping, they prepared and ate a simple dinner of noodles, rice, chicken, and vegetables. Around 9:30 p.m., Nina visited her grandmother next door to watch TV and then returned home a little while later. At 10:38 p.m., Mikio logged onto his secure work email on the computer in the ground floor study. This was the final recorded activity of any family member. The house then quieted down as the night settled in. The front door was locked, but as on so many nights before, the window in the bathroom, which again was facing the park, had been left open. This park, where kids were playing every day, was nicknamed the Choo Choo Train Park.
Let me open my windows.
This is the Tempur-Pedic Breeze mattress, and it's designed to help you feel cool. So
Sometime around 11 p.m., someone came out of the darkness of the park. He climbed the fence to the back of the house and used the external air conditioning unit as a step to reach the open second floor bathroom window. With gloved hands, he then removed the mosquito screen and put it on the ground outside and climbed in, leaving muddy footprints from his shoes on the bathroom floor as he stepped inside. He then went out of the bathroom and directly to where Ray was sleeping on the lower bunk of the bunk bed. Without waking Ray or causing any disturbance, he wrapped both his hands around Ray's neck. Within minutes, the body was lifeless on the bottom bunk. At this point, Mikio seemed to notice or hear that something was wrong and quickly ran up the stairs. A violent struggle on the staircase then followed between him and the intruder. The intruder had a knife with him and used it on Mikio multiple times before pushing him down the stairs. During this struggle, the blade tip actually fractured, cutting the intruder's hand and leaving a piece stuck in Mikio's skull. Mikio fought back with desperate strength for as long as he could, sustaining deep defensive wounds to his hands, arms, head, thighs, and chest. This left sprays across the walls, steps, and floor. Eventually, though, severely wounded and with severe blood loss,
So this dude walked in and killed the kid first. Before even like running into his parents.
he staggered down the staircase and collapsed near the front door in a widening pool. The attacker, then wounded too from the fight with Mikio, shifted focus to Yusuko and Nina, who were awake and hiding in the attic. What followed was even more savage than his struggle with Mikio. After using the instrument he brought dozens of times, he switched to a Santoku knife, which she had taken from the family's kitchen. The end result would be dozens of wounds to their faces, necks, torsos, backs, and limbs.
Sheesh.
Nina, in particular, suffered a fatal wound that severed her cervical spinal cord. And with that, right after midnight, all four members of the family were gone. But then something strange happened. Instead of fleeing, the intruder decided to stay and hang out in the house for several hours. Between 1:18 a.m. and 1:23 a.m., he used the family computer and connected to the internet. He created a new folder, accessed a bookmarked theater website, and tried to use Mikio's bank card to buy tickets, but failed. And the following hours were filled with even more bizarre behavior and random tasks. He went to the kitchen, and without using a spoon, he ate 4 cups of ice cream directly from the containers. He also ate melon slices and drank almost 4 whole bottles of barley tea from the refrigerator. After that, he went downstairs to the bathroom and he threw the leftover trash from his snack in the bathtub, and then he used the toilet without flushing. In the bathroom, he also treated his injuries with the family's first aid kit, bandages, different sanitary products, and a towel.
So clearly this dude doesn't like give a damn about like leaving evidence behind. Seems real comfortable in his house.
probably not realizing that he was leaving behind blood traces. Drawers throughout the house were then ransacked, including papers, diaries, bills, and personal items like wallets, and house keys were scattered everywhere, dumped in the bathtub, and thrown in the toilet. He would end up stealing about 100,000 yen, or 625 US dollars in cash, but strangely, he left all other valuables. After resting a while on the living room sofa, he put his own personal items neatly onto it, including a sweatshirt, a jacket, gloves, a hat, a scarf, a hip bag, and 2 handkerchiefs. Then, in the early morning of December 31st, the intruder finally decided to leave the house, but he left without bringing his stuff with him. Either way, though, the house then fell silent again, with the bathroom window still open and the front door still locked from the inside. The bodies were discovered sometime around 10:40 a.m. on New Year's Eve. Yusuko's mother, Haruko, who again lived next door, was the person who found them. She was worried after she couldn't reach the family by phone or get a response at the door, so she entered the house and discovered the bodies. She found Mikio first at the bottom of the stairs near the front door. Then, in shock, she went upstairs to the mezzanine level and found Rei's body still in the bunk bed. Yusuko and Nina were then found on the second floor, near the foot of the attic ladder. They had died huddled together with their backs touching, in a posture suggesting they had desperately tried to protect each other. Haruko then called the police at 10:58 a.m., and they came quickly. The scene they discovered was shocking even to veteran officers, with the contrast between the extreme brutality and the bizarre findings. There were bloody corpses, uneaten food remnants, an unflushed toilet, a computer still left on, and a mess everywhere except for some personal items tidily and neatly placed on the sofa. The chief of the police station, who led the investigation, thought it looked like the victims had been dispatched almost for fun, and the attacks were described by investigators as excessively evil, far beyond what would be needed for a simple burglary. The forensic reconstruction also made it clear this was not a usual crime. It was obvious the intruder had come in through the window, and the front door showed no signs of forced entry and had been locked from inside when Haruko showed up. No signs of forced entry appeared anywhere else either. The insect screen was still lying in the ground outside, and muddy shoe prints in the bathroom matched prints found in the park soil beneath the window. Broken tree branches near the park's fence were also thought to be caused by him. By simply following the shoe prints out of the bathroom, the police were able to retrace the steps very easily. They could see he had gone directly to Rei. No wounds or significant blood were on or around Rei's body, and it seemed like the attack happened without waking him fully. Asphyxiation was found to have caused his death within just a few minutes. Mikio was most likely the second victim. It's not known whether or not he heard a disturbance and rushed upstairs to his son's room, but it's clear the struggle happened on the staircase. Police assumed that he was on the first floor working before the attack, and the way his body was found slumped at the bottom of the stairs near the front door suggests that he might have either tried to flee or he was dragged or moved during the attack. Blood-spattered wound patterns also indicated he had fought back for quite a while.
Damn.
I can't afford therapy. You can afford that much as me. Therapy is for rich people. No, it's like $15 a session. Girl, you gotta get therapy.
With Rula, getting help is easier than talking yourself out of it.
Get what you pay for.
People should
You know,
absolutely rethink what they know
she
about
ain't
Urban Free
trying to
Tools.
help you.
It's a totally different company. My name is Wes Harmonic. I'm the senior.
It's also thought that at some point, Yusuko decided to try to escape with Nina, and that she took her daughter in her arms and carried her down the stairs while they were both heavily wounded. The intruder then came after them and finished them off. Nina was apparently the last one to die, and again, it was determined that her cause of death was the injury to her spinal cord. She also had some missing teeth,
$10.
suggesting blunt force trauma. Bloodstains were also found in the bed in the attic, which suggests they were attacked while either sleeping or resting, or possibly hiding. And wounds covered their whole bodies, and it also seems like they may have tried to stop the bleeding at some point, because bloodstained bandages and an open first aid kit were also found in the bed. The estimated time of death for all 4 victims is roughly between 11:30 p.m. and 12:05 a.m. on December 30th to 31st.
This Joker killed 4 people in 20 minutes. Like how the fuck?
And next came the stranger part of the whole ordeal and the investigation. The intruder then seems to have left the house sometime after 1:30 a.m. before 10 a.m. on December 31st.
Like I ain't never did it before, but I assume like killing a human is work. Like movies make it seem like strangling somebody is really easy, but like every time I like read a story or like listen to something, it takes work to fucking like asphyxiate someone. So he only choked one of them out. You like stabbed the other. Like that's a lot of work.
Maybe the most interesting part of all, though, is everything he left behind. Shoe prints, fingerprints, and DNA belonging to him were everywhere, and police traced the origins of his personal belongings meticulously. The shoe prints matched footwear later identified as South Korean manufactured sneakers, equivalent to a US men's size 9.5 to 10. The sneakers were part of a 4,530 pair batch sold between 1998 and 2000 in both South Korea and Japan, but only South Korea sold them in his size. Besides tracing the shoes, they also traced the knife he brought with him. It was one of just 1,500 units sold in the Fukui prefecture. The personal things he left behind on the sofa left many clues as well. His pale gray sweatshirt was one of only 130 made and sold in Japan between August and December of 2000, and only 10 of them had been sold in Tokyo. The black padded jacket in size large was also available in stores in September of 2000. His gloves were a pair of black, one-size leather gloves from the brand Edwin and were purchasable from 1998 to 2000. The gray wool bucket hat with a black band was sold from September of 1999 to November 2000. Then there were the two black handkerchiefs manufactured by the Japanese brand Muji. One was triangular and may have been used as a face covering, while the other one smelled of the French cologne Drakkar Noir, which has been sold in Japan since 1992. That one had most likely been used to wrap around the knife handle because it had a 3 centimeter long cut in the middle of the fabric. This technique is used in China when cleaning seafood to prevent the knife from slipping. The most interesting thing he left behind, though, was the hip bag. It was made in South Korea and sold in Japan between 1995 and 1998, and it contained all kinds of different evidence. This included sand particles traceable to the Mojave Desert in California on a US Army base and short dark hair strands that look like they've been cut deliberately. The bag also contained microspheres common in skateboard grip tape and oil residues matching the Drakkar Noir cologne. Other contents included sand from Japan's Mayura Peninsula, pollen from Zelkova and pomegranate trees, and soil possibly originating from Seoul, South Korea. The different sands, pollen, soil, and skateboard-related particles suggest that he might have traveled a lot, possibly linking to skate culture, the US military, and Korean-Japanese travel. And although it was obvious he had left all the stuff behind deliberately on the sofa, the question was why? During the investigation as well, over 12,500 items were collected and cataloged. According to the police chief, the intruder's DNA was everywhere, and in all of his years as an officer, he had never seen a case with more evidence than this one. DNA was extracted from blood, sweat on the abandoned sweatshirt, saliva on food remnants, the hair strands in the hip bag, and feces from the unflushed toilet. Type A blood, which wasn't matching any of the victims, was also collected from more than 10 places in the house. Taken all together, the profile would end up identifying a male between 15 and 35 years old,
Yeah,
later
big
narrowed
fact. Sounds like this motherfucker's young too. Like, I feel like he rode a skateboard over there to the house.
to 15 to 22. He was also approximately 170 centimeters, or 5 feet 6 inches tall, with a slender build and black or brownish hair. He was also a non-smoker, and there were no drug traces found in his blood. The wounds on the victims also indicate that he was likely right-handed, and his thumb fingerprint had a very distinctive swirl with 2 parallel lines. He might have even had an army background due to his walking style, because he apparently took
Listen, man, I
small
got 2
steps with his
parallel
back
lines on
clenched
my
to the
thumb.
walls. DNA on the paternal side indicated
Only on
East
my
Asian
right one.
origins, such as Japanese, Korean, or Chinese. The maternal lineage pointed at first to southern European roots near the Mediterranean or Adriatic regions, but was later changed to the Caucasus region, causing Interpol to have to get involved in the case. However, no matches were found in any databases, neither Japanese nor international ones, indicating that he didn't have a criminal record. Then something known as Operation Roller was conducted. Investigators started going door to door, collecting fingerprints from neighbors, family friends, people who used to live in the area, and even hospital patients with wounds on their hands. In the end, over 5 million fingerprints were compared, and 1.3 million DNA samples were tested, both domestically and internationally, but still no matches were found.
Say hello to Zero. See exactly where your business stands with no guesswork. Get instant,
He did a
accurate
lot of just
reports so
stupid
you
shit.
can make smarter decisions. It's powerful enough for your accountant,
Yeah, he ain't give a
simple
fuck.
enough for you. Try Zero today.
As the investigation was going on, there was also a lot of speculation about the motives. Was it money, a grudge, or something entirely different? Right away, the money theory didn't seem to really add
Yeah,
up.
that ain't money. He don't
Would
like
somebody
these
really
motherfuckers.
kill an entire family for such a negligible amount of money? Especially since he didn't even take all of it. Around 190,000 yen, or about 1,200 US dollars, were left behind. One of the first theories was the involvement of local skaters. Some people living nearby claim that Mikio often argued with the skaters because they were being noisy and using the park benches as skateboarding ramps. It's been supposed that one of them could have held a grudge against Mikio because of that. At the same time, though, like the money theory, would someone really do something so drastic over a simple argument?
Yeah.
Other theories were that the intruder was either mentally ill or that it was a simple burglary gone wrong. However, again, the extreme violence and the choice to only steal some of the cash while ignoring other valuables like jewelry was confusing. And the deliberate abandonment of traceable personal items in the time spent eating, browsing the internet, and even potentially taking a nap just didn't seem to make any sense. There was also no evidence of any links to Mikio's work, neighbors, or any other organized crime. As a result of all
It's like he left things for them to profile him, and they still can't fucking do it.
this, the motive for the murders remains unknown to this day. Despite the mountains of evidence as well, several critical elements remain the subject of debate that took place over the following quarter century. While the bathroom window entry point stayed undisputed, some early reports questioned whether the window had been deliberately left accessible by the family or if the intruder had prior knowledge of the house layout, either from scouting or being an acquaintance. The exact duration of the intruder's lingering has also been the subject of much
He
discussion.
stayed in there too long.
It's officially been estimated between 2 and 10 hours.
I don't stand about
The
a house
computer
10
activity
hours after
between
you kill him.
118 and
And you
123
ain't never
seems
been in
to
there?
suggest that
In
he
the
was near
refrigerator and
long.
shit?
Although the
Yeah,
condition
hell
of
no.
blood, the state of the food remnants, and the possibility that he also took a nap on the sofa suggested that he might have stayed until nearly
Motherfucker take a
dawn.
nap. Boy, you
Some
a
investigators argued
you a bold motherfucker to go in somebody's house, kill them, and take a nap in that motherfucker?
for a shorter window of 2 to 4 hours, while others maintained that the longer span better explained the casual ransacking and unhurried wound treatment. It's also been suggested that the intruder destroying things and leaving his own personal belongings could have been part of an elaborate plan to confuse the police and throw them off his tracks. Another common suggestion is that he was in some way linked to the US military and left soon afterwards on a military flight. That theory could support links to shoes from South Korea, which has numerous US military facilities, and sand found only in California.
Too small.
The maternal DNA suggesting European or Caucasus ancestry hinted at a mixed heritage, maybe a Japanese Korean individual raised partly abroad. But at the same time, others have pointed out that distant ancestral markers didn't rule out a fully domestic perpetrator. The perfume scent on the handkerchief also inspired profiles of an appearance-conscious man, and the limited sweatshirt production allowed extensive buyer tracing. In fact, the 12 sweatshirt buyers were identified and located, but all 12 were actually cleared of any suspicion. Then there's also the computer activity. The 1:18 to 1:23 a.m. internet session led some to theorize an attempt at misdirection or an attempted escape plan or alibi construction. Others interpreted the action as random curiosity. He might have been looking for family information or simply passing the time. Either of these possibilities, though, make the entire thing even stranger. It would take someone either incredibly calculating to use it as misdirection, or maybe even more disturbing, someone so callous to what they'd just done that they could just browse the internet so seemingly normally. Another confusing thing about the case is the intruder's point of entry. Did he really come in through the small bathroom window? The police did have some doubts about this because the state of his clothes was pristine, the jacket and hip bag had no signs of wear, and no traces of fiber from the items were left on the window. However, the only other possible way in was the front door, and that door was locked. There were also some alleged witnesses contacting the police afterwards, although to be clear, these are a bit murkier in terms of reporting. The first was a woman driving through the neighborhood who reported seeing a man with blood in the back of his left hand near her car in the early morning. Blood smeared on the back seat of a taxi is also sometimes reported to have been from the intruder, and there was even an incident with a man seeking hospital treatment from a severe knife wound 2 to 3 hours away the next day. Each potential connection was supposedly investigated thoroughly, though, and didn't lead anywhere. The final strangeness about the case occurred exactly 100 days after the murders. A small Buddhist statue inscribed with what appeared to be the number 6 was discovered near the Sungawa River close to the house. Some investigators theorized that the intruder placed it as a remorseful gesture, given the statue's traditional role in protecting children's souls. Others dismissed it as an unrelated coincidence, as no DNA or fingerprints linked it to the scene, but debate over its significance lingered in the case file for years. Taken all together, to this day, this is the largest murder investigation in Japan's history. Over 280,000 officers worked on the case, and around 14,700 tips came in from the public. Over 25 years later, though, the case is still unsolved. The police are receiving less and less information about the case every year, but they're still trying to solve it using DNA preservation and advanced forensic techniques like phenotyping. However, so far this hasn't led to any breakthroughs. The house itself, fenced off and preserved as an evidence depot despite plans for eventual demolition, was re-examined via 3D models constructed in 2013. Yet even these modern reviews failed to settle every lingering question about movement and timing. Police have appealed to anyone with information about the incident to come forward, passing out leaflets at local stations and displaying a life-size mannequin in the intruder's reconstructed clothing at the time of the crime. To this day, the investigation continues on, and every year the police issue a new request for information and the case is back in the news. A reward of 20 million yen, or 125,000 US dollars, for any information that leads to an arrest remains in place, and the police have vowed to never give up until the case is solved. So in the end, the case is simply brutal and extremely strange. Somebody entered a seemingly random house one evening, went on to do unspeakable things to the family inside, and then just hung out there for the next several hours. The incident, on one hand, seems entirely random, but on the other hand, it bears some signs of a calculated act. 25 years later, the case still haunts the police chief, who is now retired. He has never been able to move on from the tragedy, and he continues to go to the cemetery every year, carefully placing flowers on the family's grave. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching, and a special thanks to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon or as a channel member.
Damn. That's weird though, they never solved that. I don't know. I feel like it was just a young motherfucker. Like, why would you find like skateboard remnants? Like, you know, they just never caught him, which is crazy. He left like all his evidence, all his DNA, his clothes. Well, I don't know. Could have been a government agency. Hmm.